Chapter 1: The Quiet Bookstore. In the heart of a bustling city, nestled between towering skyscrapers and noisy traffic, stood a quiet little bookstore named Whispering Pages. Owned by a shy and introverted woman named Emily Harper, the bookstore was a sanctuary for those seeking solace in the company of books. Emily had inherited the bookstore from her grandmother, and it had been her haven since she was a child. Emily was a creature of habit. Every morning, she would arrive at the bookstore an hour before it opened, preparing the shelves and organizing the new arrivals. Her favorite part of the day was when she could lose herself in a good book, her mind traveling to distant lands and times. The bookstore had regular customers who appreciated the peace and the extensive collection of literature, but Emily never expected any grand adventures or significant changes in her life. One particularly rainy morning, as Emily was engrossed in a classic novel, the bell above the door jingled, signaling the arrival of a customer. She looked up to see a tall man with a charming smile, dripping wet from the rain. He had an air of confidence and a presence that seemed to light up the dimly lit bookstore. "Good morning," he said, shaking off his umbrella and looking around. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all," Emily replied, setting her book aside. "Can I help you find something?" "I'm looking for a quiet place to wait out the rain and maybe find a good book to read," he said, his eyes scanning the shelves. "I'm Ethan Williams, by the way." "Nice to meet you, Ethan." "I'm Emily." "Feel free to look around. We have a little reading nook in the back if you'd like to sit and read." Ethan smiled and made his way to the shelves, browsing through the titles. Emily watched him for a moment before returning to her book, though she couldn't help but steal glances at him now and then. There was something about him that intrigued her, a certain warmth and openness that made her curious. Chapter 2: A Shared Love for Literature. As the rain continued to pour outside, Ethan made himself comfortable in the reading nook with a book he had picked up. Hours passed, and the sound of rain against the windows created a soothing backdrop. Emily and Ethan exchanged a few words now and then, mostly about books and their favorite authors. Ethan was a well-known author, though Emily didn't realize it at first. He enjoyed the anonymity that came with visiting small bookstores, where he could be just another reader lost in a story. As the day went on, Emily found herself more and more drawn to Ethan's easygoing nature and his passion for literature. "Do you come here often?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. "Every day," Emily replied with a smile. "This bookstore is my life. I inherited it from my grandmother, and it's been my home ever since." "That's wonderful," Ethan said, genuinely impressed. "I can see the love and care you've put into this place. It's very welcoming." "Thank you," Emily said, feeling a warmth spread through her at his words. "What about you? What brings you to our little bookstore?" "I travel a lot for work," Ethan explained. "But whenever I get the chance, I love visiting small, independent bookstores. There's something magical about them that you can't find in big chain stores." Emily nodded in agreement. "Books have a way of bringing people together, don't they?" "They do," Ethan said with a smile. "Speaking of which, do you have any recommendations? I'm always looking for something new to read." Emily's eyes lit up at the opportunity to share her favorite books. She led Ethan to a section filled with her personal favorites, discussing each one with enthusiasm. Ethan listened intently, appreciating her knowledge and passion. As the day turned into evening and the rain finally began to let up, Ethan realized it was time for him to leave. He reluctantly picked up his umbrella and headed to the counter to pay for the book he had chosen. "Thank you for the recommendation, Emily," he said, handing her the book. "I'll definitely be back." "I hope you enjoy it," Emily said, ringing up the purchase. "And you're always welcome here, rain or shine." With a final smile, Ethan stepped out into the now clear night, leaving Emily with a sense of anticipation and a small flutter in her heart. Chapter 3: A New Routine. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became a regular visitor at Whispering Pages. He would often come in during the afternoons, spending hours browsing the shelves or chatting with Emily about books and life. Their conversations grew longer and more personal, and Emily found herself looking forward to Ethan's visits more than she cared to admit. One afternoon, as Ethan sat in the reading nook with a new book, he noticed Emily struggling with a stack of heavy boxes. He quickly put down his book and rushed over to help. "Let me give you a hand with those," he offered, taking the top box from her. "Thank you, Ethan," Emily said, grateful for the help. "I'm trying to reorganize the back room, but it's a bit overwhelming." Together, they moved the boxes to the back room, chatting and laughing as they worked. Emily was surprised at how comfortable she felt around Ethan, how easy it was to be herself. As they finished stacking the last box, Ethan glanced around the cozy back room. "This place is really special," he said, looking at Emily. "You can feel the history and the love that's gone into it." "It's always been my safe haven," Emily admitted. "A place where I can escape and lose myself in stories." "I'm glad I found it," Ethan said softly. "And that I found you." Emily's heart skipped a beat at his words. She looked up at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine the possibility of something more between them. Chapter 4: An Unexpected Confession. One crisp autumn day, Ethan came into the bookstore with a different energy. He seemed more nervous, more restless. Emily noticed immediately and couldn't help but wonder what was on his mind. "Everything okay?" she asked as he joined her at the counter. "Actually, there's something I need to tell you," Ethan said, taking a deep breath. "And I hope it doesn't change things between us." Emily's curiosity was piqued, and she nodded for him to continue. "I've been keeping a bit of a secret," Ethan admitted. "I'm an author. A somewhat well-known one, actually." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? That's amazing, Ethan. Why would that change anything?" "I just didn't want you to think I was hiding it from you," Ethan explained. "I love how genuine our connection is, and I didn't want my career to get in the way." Emily smiled, relieved. "It doesn't change how I feel about you, Ethan. If anything, it makes me admire you even more." Ethan's expression softened, and he reached out to take her hand. "I'm glad to hear that, Emily. Because I've grown quite fond of you, and I'd like to see where this goes." Emily felt a surge of happiness at his words. "I'd like that too, Ethan." Chapter 5: A Literary Romance. As the weeks turned into months, Emily and Ethan's relationship blossomed. They spent countless hours together, both in and outside of the bookstore. They explored the city, attended literary events, and shared quiet moments in the reading nook, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Ethan often found inspiration in the bookstore, writing new chapters while Emily worked nearby. He loved how her presence made his words flow more easily, how her passion for literature fueled his own creativity. One evening, as they sat together in the reading nook, Ethan handed Emily a manuscript. "I'd like you to read this," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "It's my latest work, and it's dedicated to you." Emily took the manuscript, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you, Ethan. I'll treasure it." As she began to read, she realized that the story mirrored their own journey, a tale of unexpected love and the magic of books. Tears filled her eyes as she turned the pages, touched by Ethan's words and the depth of his feelings. When she finished, she looked up at him, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's beautiful, Ethan. Thank you for sharing this with me." "I'm glad you liked it," Ethan said, his eyes filled with warmth. "You inspire me, Emily. In more ways than you know." Chapter 6: A Future Together. With their love for each other and their shared passion for literature, Emily and Ethan's relationship continued to flourish. They made plans for the future, discussing dreams and possibilities. Ethan supported Emily in expanding Whispering Pages, helping her host author readings and literary events that brought new life to the bookstore. As the seasons changed, their love grew deeper, and they knew they had found something truly special. One winter evening, as they walked hand in hand through a snow-covered park, Ethan stopped and turned to Emily. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you," he said, his breath visible in the cold air. Emily looked up at him, her heart pounding. "What is it, Ethan?" Ethan took a deep breath, reaching into his coat pocket. "Emily, you are the love of my life. You make every day brighter and every story more meaningful. Will you marry me?" Tears of joy filled Emily's eyes as she looked at the man she had grown to love so deeply. "Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times yes." Ethan slipped a beautiful ring onto her finger, and they embraced, their hearts full of happiness and hope for the future. Epilogue: The Happily Ever After. Emily and Ethan's love story became the stuff of legends, a tale shared among the customers of Whispering Pages and beyond. They married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by friends and family, their vows filled with promises of love and adventure. Together, they continued to nurture their passions, both individually and as a couple. Emily's bookstore flourished, becoming a beloved literary haven in the city. Ethan's writing career reached new heights, his stories inspired by the love he shared with Emily. And so, in the quiet little bookstore where it all began, Emily and Ethan lived their happily ever after, their love story forever intertwined with the magic of books and the power of unexpected love.